Randolph Carter was 30. He lost the key of the Gate of Dreams. Prior to that time, he had made up for the prosiness of life by nightly excursions to strange and ancient cities beyond space, and lovely, unbelievable garden lands across ethereal seas. But as middle age hardened upon him, he felt those liberties slipping away little by little, until at last he was cut off altogether. No more could his galley sail up the river Ochronos, I'm not sure, past the gilded spires of Thrawn, or his elephant caravans tramped through perfumed jungles and Cled, where forgotten places with veined ivory columns sleep lovely and unbroken under the moon. Hello there, people. Hold on just a sec. Hello there, everybody, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. Don't know why I slowed down for a second there. Maybe it's because of the story I just read. So today we will be reviewing The Silver Key, here in the collection of the best of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, this one's gonna be interesting, because this is probably one of the oddest Lovecraft stories I've ever read. And that's saying something. Given what we've covered so far, to say that this is one of the angles kind of drive me nuts. But to say that this is the weirdest one, that is I don't know what to make of that. That this is the weirdest one. I'm not sure what that says, I should say. So as we said before, this last week, if you watched last episode, I mentioned that this story introduces us, not properly introduces us, because as you'll find, there's quite a lot to this story, but so far on our journey, this is the introduction of one of Lovecraft's longest running characters, and that character is Randolph Carter. Now, Randolph Carter is a very important name in the Lovecraft universe. Not just, it's an important name, especially when we get into, that I have it right here, the Dreamlands. This guy is very important to stories in the Dreamlands. And he's also thought of to be somewhat of an almost kind of like an alter ego, or maybe a stand-in. I wouldn't quite go so far as to say a stand-in, but I would definitely say that Lovecraft and Carter, if you look it up, share a lot of similarities. And this is odd. This is one of the oddest stories I've ever read, and I'm going to tell you why. First off, the synopsis. Basically, it's a story of a man finding his nostalgia or his ability of imagination again. Kind of. There's a Lovecraftian sort of twist at the end. But, oh my god. Okay, so, it's not bad. I want to stress that right now. This is not a bad story, but what it is I feel like this is probably, kind of like The Outsider, I feel like this is probably one of the most, vulnerable Lovecraft stories I've ever read. Because there are passages in it that feel less like it's part of the story, and more like Lovecraft basically sort of talking about life, talking about his opinions on life, and sort of attributing it to Randolph Carter losing the key to the Gate of Dreams, and how reality and people and wise men and scientists are trying to basically say, no, the dream world, no, the dream world there is nothing in the dream world that basically is on the same level as, like, scientific understanding and philosophy and that kind of thing, and that kind of deadens him almost. And there are multiple passages in this story that, if I can get it, if I can get it to the story anyway, that feel real. It feels less like Lovecraft telling a story and more kind of like a Lovecraft kind of reminiscing weirdly. And talking about how dreams can sometimes hold the beauty more than reality can. Sort of how dreams can sort of keep what humanity's forgotten, or something like this. So, like, there are multiple passages where, and I'll try and find some, where Lovecraft just kind of goes on and on about this kind of thing. If I can find it. Just a sec, folks. So Carter had tried to do as others did, and pretended that the common events and emotions of earthly minds were more important than the fantasies of rare and delicate souls. He did not dissent when they told him that the animal pain of a stuck pig or dyspeptic plowman in real life is a greater thing than the peerless beauty of Narath, with its 100 carven gates and domes of Chalcedony, which he dimly remembered from his dreams, and under their guidance he cultivated a painstaking sense of pity and tragedy. Once in a while, though, he could not help seeing how shallow, fickle, and meaningless all human aspirations are, and how emptily our real impulses contrast with those pompous ideals we profess to hold. Then he would have recourse to the polite laughter they had taught him to use against the extravagance and artificiality of dreams, for he saw that the daily life of our world is every inch as extravagant and artificial, and far less worthy of respect, because of its poverty and beauty, and its silly reluctance to admit its own lack of reason and purpose. In this way, he became a kind of humorist, for he did not see that even humor is empty in a mindless universe, devoid of any true standard of consistency or inconsistency. Jeez. There's like a bunch of other ones. There's a bunch of bits like that. But it says there was like one that was like really kind of insightful. It wearied Carter to see how solemnly people tried to make earthly reality out of old myths which every step of their boasted science confuted, and this misplaced seriousness killed the attachment he might have kept for the ancient creeds had they been content to offer the erroneous rites and emotional outlets in their true guise of ethereal fantasy. But when he came to study those who had thrown off the old myths, he found them even more ugly than those who had not. They did not know that beauty lies in harmony, and that loveliness of life has no standard amidst an aimless cosmos, save only its harmony with the dreams and the feelings which have gone before and blindly molded our little spheres out of the rest of the chaos. They did not see that good and evil, and beauty and ugliness are only ornamental fruits of perspective, whose sole value lies in their linkage to what chance made our fathers think and feel, and whose finer details are different for every race and culture. Instead, they either denied these things altogether or transferred them to the crude, vague instincts which they shared with the beasts and peasants, so that their lives were dragged malodorously out in pain, ugliness, and disproportion, yet filled with a ludicrous pride at having escaped from something no more unsound than that which still held them. They had traded the false gods of fear and blind piety for those of license and anarchy. Jesus. And again, like he kind of goes on a little bit about that for quite a while in this story. And then, of course, he starts, little bits of fantasy starts flickering into his dreams again, because, again, he lost the ability to sort of access the dreamlands, which, again, we'll get to a different time. And he kind of comes back to fantasy, and he comes back to almost his childhood, and I'm wondering, when was this written? I think I checked, it was like maybe the late 20s, maybe early 30s. If you saw the opening, it'll probably say what year it came out. But I feel like this is Lovecraft. I feel like this was a story that was based around Lovecraft rekindling something or losing something in him. And I'm not sure what to make of that. Not that it's bad, it's just so... It's so fascinating, this story. Because it's not much a story as much as it is Randolph Carter kind of going, sort of losing the key to the Gate of Dreams and retrieving them again, and then the ending is just kind of vague about it. And I'm not gonna spoil it, but Lovecraft kind of gets a little mind-effy here at the end of this story. He gets very mind-effy, and he just... I don't know. I may have to sit on this story, actually, a little bit. I like it. I think it's a good story. It's Lovecraft. It's well written. I actually was able to follow it a lot of the time. I'm usually able to follow Lovecraft stories, but again, sometimes it does feel like he's using the big words. So, yeah. I don't know what I'd rate this story. I really don't. Or maybe I do. Maybe I do. Not quite sure. I'll get back to you next week about that. I'll get back to y'all next week. As for Lovecraft connections to like the universe and everything, there's like too many to count. There's like too many references to count. There's like so many references to characters and locations and elements, plot elements, the dreamlands yet again. Randolph Carter is very important to that, as we've stated already. But like, if we go back, I found like a bunch of different references. Just across pages 58 to 59, there's references non-stop to Arkham, to Miskatonic, I'm guessing like Miskatonic University. There's references to like a crumbling farmhouse. I'm not sure if that's a picture in the house. I don't think it is. There's a reference to Kingsport. There's references to just a bunch of different things. There's a reference to it. It says Carter recognize. Wait, I think it's when he opens the box that the silver key is in, that he uses later. And again, it's kind of confusing, but he says Carter recognized the characters on the box. I think that the box that the key came in. Recognized the characters as those he had seen on a certain papyrus scroll belonging to that terrible scholar of the South who had vanished one midnight in a nameless cemetery. The man had always shivered when he read the scroll, and Carter shivered now. Is that a reference to the statement of Randolph Carter? Which is yet again another story shows up in this. Is this a reference to statement of Randolph Carter? Is that a reference to Harley Warren? If it is, then this is also technically the first time that we have at least a little bit of a reference to Harley Warren. I'm not sure if it's actually Harley Warren, but if it is, then Harley Warren plays a pretty big part with Randolph Carter. So, yeah, this is a good story. The ending is kind of screwy, but I think it's pretty good. If it seems like I'm kind of sort of rushing it or whatever, I apologize. I missed yesterday, and I'm also feeling just kind of eh. But Yeah, so this is a good story. This is a very good story. It's very fascinating to read, as you heard with the passages before. I feel like this is Lovecraft expressing something more than just, oh, it's a story about a guy who reclaims his nostalgia or his childhood or his imagination or whatnot. This, I think, is Lovecraft's sort of thoughts on how we shouldn't completely ignore the dream world, and how the dream world can often hold a lot more truth about our reality than reality does. And of course, it does tie back to the whole concept of living in a meaningless universe and cosmos that probably doesn't give a flying bollocks about humanity's goings on. Which I don't necessarily agree with that point of view, but it's fascinating to read for certain. So guys, this was The Silver Key. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode, and next week we will be catching up with the music of Eric Zahn. And then I think after Eric Zahn, we get to one of the big ones. We get to one of the big ones next month. We get to one of the big famous stories of H.P. Lovecraft. But until then, music of Eric Zahn comes out next Saturday or Sunday, depending. I have been your host, Andrew Carr. This has been the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.